Let's open our Bibles to Matthew chapter 6. We're going to spend the majority of our time in verse 11. I'm going to introduce verse 11 from chapter 6, verse 33. But we've come to the heart of the Lord's Prayer. Lord's Prayer is just 70 Greek words. It's 5 verses in our Bible. And when you get to verse 11, you're in the middle verse. It truly, in every way, is the heart of this prayer. And it's the only part that we start expressing our needs. We're kind of informed of what we need to do, focus on God and surrender and follow Him. But now we get to that most personal of all of our needs, our daily bread. And I love, of all the messages that are a part of the Lord's Prayer, I love this heart because what it's about is a choice that all of us have to make about whether or not we're going to go through life on a daily basis needing God. That's what the verse is about. It's give us this day our what? Daily bread. By the way, when you said daily, did you know there's great controversy over that word being in this prayer? Do you remember Jerome, the guy that made the Vulgate, the Latin Vulgate, St. Jerome? He thought Jesus invented that word because it's nowhere else in any Greek literature ever found for all the centuries until they started excavating Egypt in the 19th century. And finally, they found out why that word was so rare. It was only used in women's shopping lists when they went to the market to get what they needed just that day. It's a very unique Greek word. And so we're looking at Christ's expectations for all of us. We're looking at Matthew 6:33. Matthew 6:33 introduces us, when we talk about seeking God first, tells us how to do it. And if you back up from 6:33 to 6:9 through 13, we come to Jesus expressing to us a pattern. Remember, after this manner, it says in verse 9, pray ye. So Jesus didn't say pray these words. He said this becomes the framework that you go through life knowing what your 7 greatest needs are. Now, I love it. Jesus was big into sevens. All the way through the Gospel by John, it's heptadic. It's all sevens, The 7 titles of Christ in chapter 1. The 7 I ams are kind of like the framework of the book. The 7 sign miracles. There's so many sevens, but then when you get to Revelation, it's just explosively into sevens. Well, here's another one. The 7 greatest needs you and I have as we live through the end of days. And those 7 greatest needs are... Now, I thought I'd do this. Again, I'm not going to make you get up and down, get up and down. That's for the young people in the Bible Institute. But you can still do everything they do other than the getting up and getting down. The way I keep my classes going is I regularly say, okay, I want all of you to stand right now. It really transforms the class. They never know when I'm going to say that, and so they have to kind of be listening. Because it's very embarrassing if everybody else stands up and you weren't even listening. You had your AirPods in or something. So, I shouldn't tell this story, but I will. I won't look at Bonnie. I taught at the Master's Seminary in California. In fact, Bonnie and I were part of the inaugural faculty of the Master's Seminary in 1987 when it launched. And what that means is that I was teaching a full load of classes I'd never taught in my life. And Bonnie, I never learned how to type. She had to sit next to me and type everything because every test, every quiz, every handout, every overhead, everything had to be typed because it was a seminary. And I don't know how to type. I took Latin instead of typing. Right? Typing was back then. I don't want to be, sexist or anything, but typing was for girls in high school back in the 60s. They were going to be the secretaries. Us boys, we learned Latin. Well, we were doing the Master's Seminary, and I would have classes. I had every student in the Master's Seminary, 100 of them, and they would be in these classes, and these were men coming from across the country with their families to prepare for the ministry. They worked a job any job they could get. Most of them worked all night long, these terrible graveyard shifts, and they would come in for an 8 o'clock class, and they'd sit there intently trying to listen, and they'd slowly fade away and fall asleep. And I had a deal. I did it every class. I said to the class, I said, I am going to do this. When I see someone that has fallen asleep, I'm going to look at you and go, and you're supposed to go bump, bump to the guy that's sound asleep and say, he asked you to close in prayer. And so this poor father of 5 children that worked all night would be sound asleep, and the person next to him would go, he asked you to close in prayer. He'd stand up and say, right in the middle of my lecture, oh Lord, this has been such a wonderful class, and everyone would just, what you're doing, start laughing. Okay, I'm not going to do that. What I am going to do is, you get to read the yellow on all the next 4 slides, and I'll read the red. Okay, you ready? 1, 2, 3, yellow. I do the red. I, and we. But this is the one that has to make choices of obeying the Lord. I need God to focus me. To focus me on where I'm headed, that glassy sea, that throne, the fire that's emanating from before the throne that's flowing like a river that Daniel saw, those what we call theocentric cherubim. There are 4 of them, and they're always facing God, and they're flying around above and around the throne saying, holy, holy, holy. I need God to focus me on where I'm headed. This is not where I'm headed. This with thinking about the traffic and thinking about the everything is going up in price, and thinking about the political climate right now, and thinking about, what's going on in Europe and what's going on. It's like, wow, the world has never been in such a brink of something going to happen as we are right now. And I can get thinking about that all the time, and it's paralyzing. No, I need God to focus me on Him. Okay, your second job. 1, 2, 3. I need God. He's the only one that can control me. I can't control me. Left to my own, my heart is deceitful and wicked. That's what the scriptures say. And I am like the restless sea, and I'm prone to worry. By the way, do you know what worrying is? Have any of you ever worried? Could you confess that? Have you worried about anything? Okay. You ever been anxious? Okay. Do you know what that is? That's the opposite end of a very positive quality. That means you are really good at meditating. You're just meditating on all the wrong things. When you worry, you're meditating on problems. You're meditating on all those things that you can't solve. Meditation is neutral. You get to choose whether you meditate on problems or on the promise of God. And God said, I want you to present your body back to me regularly. And so Paul, by the way, enlarges on Jesus's after this manner pray. And Paul said, you should be praying without what? Ceasing. Yeah. So when I pray, a part of every prayer, including this morning, was, God, I need you today to control me. Apart from you, I can do all kinds of stuff. But it amounts, as John 15 says, apart from Him, everything I do amounts to nothing. That's what I need. I need to abide in Him, and abiding in Him is I need God to control me.